Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this video showcasing the unreleased vehicles for GTA Online and its customization. The vehicles will be coming out over the next 8 weeks because there's a total of 8 vehicles. It might take a little bit longer, but this is what you can expect in the next 2 months. Of course, this does mean that it is still pretty much aligned with when the expanded and enhanced DLC will be coming out. When I say DLC, because the game doesn't really look all that much different. Starting off with the Comet S2 Cabrio, there isn't really all that much special to it. It's a Comet S2, but instead you can now put the roof down. I don't particularly see the reason why this car exists or is going to exist, but in terms of customization, there's an okay amount that you can do to it. Liveries don't seem to be all that much special, but you know, I think because the fact that it's basically a Comet S2 where you can put the roof down, you wouldn't really expect too much new. There is, however, a livery on there which is supposedly coming around Christmas time, so this car might be one of the first ones to release. An interesting fact though about the Comet S2 Cabrio is that it does appear to have an active spoiler, which, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't appear to be the case in the Comet S2. And even more interestingly enough, even changing the spoiler on it will still mean that you'll have an active spoiler on your Comet S2. It just simply seems to change the cosmetic aspect of it. Maybe it will help you in slow corners, but I'm not 100%. Next up is the Xeno, which is the only supercar releasing within the drip feed. This one has a little bit more customization when it comes to the front bumper. The back bumper does some interesting things, and the side of the car definitely has some more questionable customization, but overall it looks a little bit more of a futuristic type of car. Definitely something that might have been based on a prototype rather than something that's real. Obviously, I'm mostly just talking shit out of my ass here because my knowledge about cars is not that big, but I like showing things to people, so this is where we are. Customization wise, like I said, it has a couple of interesting options here, though one thing that I've definitely noticed with the customization as a whole in this DLC is that there's an awful lot of, hey, here's how you can have a different kind of color that is either your secondary or your primary, and it basically takes up 3 slots of, for example, the hood options at the Xeno, which doesn't really make an awful lot of interesting customization in my opinion, and just kind of clutters your screen. As I said before, as you look at the skirts, it becomes increasingly weird, but I kinda like it in a way, although I'm not sure how I feel about the last couple of options, because this is just kinda looking a little bit weird. But you know, that's my opinion. When we arrive at the spoilers, the last few options are definitely there to be a cool looking aesthetic, if you catch my drift.
Hey, look out for fools like me!
Then moving on to the Baller ST. This car is, well, in terms of customization, not a whole lot going on here. It does look an awful lot like the regular Baller. And aside from that, in terms of customization, I don't think you can really alter the look of this car too much. It will pretty much still look like a Baller, but for some reason it does go a little bit quicker than the regular Baller, so I don't really know what to say about this one other than it's another Baller. The liveries though, they are quite cool. There's a few cool options on there, some of them more questionable than others, but generally speaking, I do quite like what I'm seeing. I think the main thing with these cars is definitely always the liveries, especially with tuners. They definitely added some cool things. If you wanted to drive around with the Republic of Straits Rangers, then I guess you're going to do that now in your brand new Baller, because why not? Another Christmas livery on this one too, so that might mean that we might see these two vehicles come out around Christmas time alongside of the Comet S2. Roof options and skirt options, not too much special. Spoiler is definitely not really something to really write home about either, as you don't really see much of a difference from the outside looking in. So yeah, not an awfully lot here.
luck right there. Hey.
Moving on to the Granger 3600LX. It's definitely more of an SUV that is meant for some more serious driving about, if you catch my drift. With that I mean, if you're trying to look like you're transporting someone important, then I think this car will definitely do the trick with those mean looking bull bars and everything on the front of the car. Obviously, liveries are once again, well, pretty basic, but there's some ones in there that are quite cool, like this off-road hero livery and the alternative version of that look quite cool, as well as the half camo. The hunting camo I don't think has much place on this car, and the Patriot beer is just there if you feel like being a bit of a meme. And the last three camos are just kind of basic, and the last one is just really there to make you look like a handbag or something like that. If you want to make your car look a little bit weird at the front there, you can have a wind deflector. Not quite sure what you would do with that in a real life scenario, but I guess you can add it to your car, as well as these fancy looking lights and the side steps in case you have trouble with getting onto your car after having too much Christmas dinner or something. Moving on to the I-Wagen, the very first and only SUV in the game that is fully electric. That does make it automatically a lot less interesting when it comes to engine upgrades and all that stuff. But in general, in terms of customization, not an awful lot going on here either. Pretty basic things, nothing too fancy, nothing too great to alter your car all that much, but in terms of liveries, there's some cool options in here, though nothing that really stands out for me. I'm like, oh, I have to go and get this, but generally speaking, it looks like a pretty decent car. In terms of performance, it's pretty okay.
Hey, you my dude, right?
Then moving on to the Patriot Mil-Spec, a car that gives me a lot of vibes back to GTA 3 and or San Andreas, so definitely not opposed to that. A lot more customization options on this vehicle, especially when it comes to the bull bars and making sure that this thing is going to fit to your liking. I would argue that this car has the most amount of customization options to it inside of this DLC, which is a bit unfortunate if you think about it, considering this car is going to be about $1.8 million. And in terms of performance, it's a very heavy off-road car. It has a lot of understeer, so I'm not entirely sure if you would purchase this other than the fact that you like the fact that you can have yourself an old school Patriot like you had in GTA 3, which is kind of making me wonder why they just didn't bother calling it the Patriot Classic, but you know, here we are. Livery is pretty standard stuff. You can ride around like a actual patriot because you love your country so much, except if you're not from America, that will be not making a whole lot of sense. And then there's the tailgates, which I'm not quite sure what they changed because there's not really an awful lot there. Truck beds obviously is also a thing. You can also decide to cover up the back there in case you want to make the backside of your car bulletproof, which could be potentially useful in certain scenarios. Then moving on to the two bikes. First up, the Reefer coming in with a cool $1.9 million. Something very interesting about the Chenobi coming up as well, which we'll touch on whenever we're talking about that. In terms of customization, not a whole lot going on here. Mud guards, they're a thing. They don't change that much. I do quite like the scoop ones though. They're a little bit unique. I don't think I've ever seen them on the other bike before. So for some reason you can also change the color and the shape of your seat. So that's a thing, I suppose. The liveries on this, not super impressive. Not all that hyped about it, but you can decide to rock another sprunk livery on a vehicle if you are one of those people that like it. Windscreens, bit of a weird option here. If you remember from the Tuners DLC, you could also change the headlight colors. It seems that they have decided that the windscreen should also have that. And then last but most certainly not least is the Chenobi, coming in with a whopping $2.5 million price tag. And in terms of customization, the only thing notable is the exhaust. The rest, well, you can kind of change the color of it slightly, but yeah, there's not an awful lot that is being changed. In terms of the liveries, there's some cool stuff in there. I'm particularly a fan of the last one, as it looks nice and vibrant and colorful. It makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside.
You gotta watch out, fool. Shit, that's dumb luck right there.
Lastly, I do want to point out something weird about the Chenobi, and that is the fact that whenever you step on the gas in a corner, it's very aggressive when it comes to acceleration, so keep that in mind when you're driving this bike. It's one of the reasons why I just crashed there, because normally when you just go through a corner, you let go, you accelerate through the corner and you're fine. But this one seems very strangely aggressive when it comes to acceleration when you're going through a corner. That might be a weird thing with the bike itself that happens from time to time, because I couldn't really replicate it again, so that was kind of odd. When it comes to the bikes themselves, I of course also got curious if it one of those bikes like the Shitoro, where you can just simply lean forward and get a speed boost, but it seems like that this one is really going to be all about the wheeling. When it comes to the Chenobi, doesn't seem to benefit all that much from wheelies. This is of course a very rough and very quick test. My name is not Bruffy1322, so my tests are not going to be as accurate, but the Reefer seems to have a much easier time with keeping the wheel up than the Chenobi is, thus it does seem to have a higher top speed than the Chenobi, so maybe this is going to be a balance in between the Reefer having a high top speed and the Chenobi really being one of those more fast acceleration type of bikes. So very curious to see how the performance of those are going to be. I am not good enough at driving bikes in a circle for a couple of minutes to be able to give you accurate testing results, so we're gonna have to wait until these come out and the Bruffy man can do what he does best, which is driving around circles around the same track as he has for the last 8 years. That does wrap it up though for this video. I hope you enjoyed it or found it useful. If you did, make sure to leave it a like, subscribe for more, and if you really like what you see on the channel, please do consider becoming a member like Chloe, Robert, Captain Price, Madman Dakota, and Shapeshift Gaming. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you all later.